Tonight Hollywood is melting down again, and it all leads back to Blake Lively and her legal team showing up to a hearing that had nothing to do with them, but still managed to create total chaos. Lawyers clashing, subpoenas flying, and secrets being exposed behind the scenes. Could this be the beginning of a full-blown scandal that even insiders are calling shocking? Stay tuned, because what happened next in court will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about this case and the people involved. Tonight, Hollywood is in chaos again, and the drama just keeps escalating as Blake Lively and her attorneys step into a hearing that had nothing to do with them, but still managed to create total chaos. Lawyers clashing, subpoenas flying, and secrets being exposed behind the scenes. Could this be the beginning of a full-blown scandal that even insiders are calling shocking? Stay tuned, because what happened next in court will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about this case and the people involved. The courtroom was tense, the air thick with anticipation, because no one knew what would happen next. Kristen Bender, the attorney representing Blake, has a history of filing motions and trying to insert herself into proceedings where she does not belong, and tonight was no different. She was there on behalf of Jonesworks and Blake Lively, attempting to justify her presence at a hearing involving Stephanie Jones and Jen Abel, a case so convoluted that even seasoned lawyers were shaking their heads, trying to follow the connections between Van Zandt Inc., Blake Lively, and the allegations flying across the courtroom. Stephanie Jones is suing Jen Abel for accessing her computer and sharing information that allegedly belonged to Jones, while at the same time, Stephanie had previously attempted to compel documents from parties that had nothing to do with her motion, showing a pattern of overreach and aggressive legal maneuvers. The tension in the courtroom escalated when Kevin Fritz, representing Wayfair, pointed out that Blake Lively and her team were not parties to this case, and therefore had no right to speak or influence the judge, which left Kristen Bender scrambling to justify her presence in a hearing that was entirely unrelated to her clients. The entire room felt the drama unfold as arguments flew back and forth, with lawyers pointing fingers at one another while the judge calmly reminded everyone that the rules of procedure exist for a reason and that untimely motions and subpoenas cannot just be thrown into the court at will. The suspense was palpable because it was clear that underneath the legal formalities, there was a deeper story unfolding, a story about power, influence, and retribution that tied back to high-profile names in Hollywood, names that could change the course of public opinion and even impact reputations overnight. At the heart of the case was Casease, who had previously worked for Jonesworks and then moved on to Tagish, a company headed by Melissa Nathan, but funded and backed financially by Scooter Braun, who had left Stephanie Jones after discovering aggressive tactics allegedly aimed at harassing Taylor Swift through social media campaigns and Reddit threads. The revelation that Scooter Braun had been a former client of Stephanie Jones and had personally distanced himself from her practices added layers of intrigue to the case, because now Stephanie Jones was seen targeting employees of Scooter Braun's firm instead of him directly, creating a narrative that confused even the most experienced legal observers, and it left everyone questioning the true motivation behind the lawsuit. Was it really about defamation, or was it about power, control, and revenge against someone who dared to leave her orbit and start a successful competing firm? The courtroom drama intensified as evidence was presented showing that Casease had created social media accounts and websites that allegedly reflected negative opinions about Stephanie Jones. But there was no concrete evidence linking Melissa Nathan to directing these actions. And yet, Stephanie Jones continued to argue that Melissa Nathan orchestrated the entire operation, creating a complex web of conflicting testimonies and potential perjury that made it nearly impossible to decipher who was telling the truth at this point in the case. The suspense kept building because it became clear that the judge would have to navigate not only the technical legalities, but also the underlying personal vendettas that fueled this mess. The tension was further amplified when Kristen Bender attempted to argue that the information being sought was relevant to proving misconduct in another case, despite the fact that it had no bearing on the current proceedings, and the judge swiftly shut down these arguments, reminding everyone that relevance is a key principle in court, and that untimely motions and subpoenas cannot just be thrown into the court at will. The intrigue continued as it was revealed that Casease admitted to creating the social media content and the website, but claimed she did so at the direction of Melissa Nathan, while Melissa Nathan denied any involvement, raising questions about credibility. The line and potential financial fallout looming large over all parties involved, the courtroom drama was almost cinematic as arguments were made about subpoenas, evidence chain of custody, and deposition testimony, while underneath the legal language, the narrative of betrayal, power struggles, and revenge played out like a Hollywood thriller with unexpected twists and turns, and every motion filed, every objection raised, and every response submitted was scrutinized for hidden meaning, strategic positioning, and the potential to shift the balance of power in the case. And the suspense kept mounting because with each revelation, the stakes only seemed to grow higher, and the personal histories of the parties involved intertwined with the legal strategies, creating a complex web that was impossible to untangle quickly or easily. And every spectator in the courtroom and every viewer following this saga online was left holding their breath, wondering who would emerge victorious, who would be discredited, and what secrets would ultimately be revealed that could change public perception and influence future actions in Hollywood and legal circles alike. As the drama unfolded, layer upon layer of intrigue, deception, and strategy intersected, creating a narrative that was as much about human ambition and ego as it was about legal principles. And the suspense kept building because at any moment, a new revelation could turn the entire case on its head and shift the momentum from one side to another, creating uncertainty and tension that gripped everyone involved, leaving them waiting for the next explosive twist in this high-stakes courtroom saga. As the courtroom saga continued, tensions only escalated with every passing minute because the stakes were higher than anyone had anticipated, and the drama behind the scenes was just as explosive as the legal arguments being made in front of the judge. The attorneys were circling one another like predators, each trying to gain the upper hand while simultaneously defending their clients against allegations that seemed to extend beyond the actual scope of the lawsuit and into personal vendettas and past grievances that had long simmered under the surface. The suspense was nearly unbearable because Stephanie Jones appeared determined to make an example out of Melissa Nathan and Casease, even though the financial and operational control of TAG rested with Braun, and this created a confusing landscape where the true target of the litigation seemed obscured by layers of strategy, misdirection, and high-stakes posturing. Every motion filed, every objection raised, and every argument made was scrutinized not just for its legal merit, but for the underlying intentions and the potential to sway public perception. Because in Hollywood, perception can be as powerful as a courtroom ruling, and everyone watching could feel that the outcomes of these hearings could have long-lasting implications for reputations, business relationships, and the careers of those involved. At the center of the chaos was Casease, who had admitted to creating the website and social media content that allegedly defamed Stephanie Jones, but claimed she did so under the instructions of Melissa Nathan, while Melissa Nathan steadfastly denied any involvement, creating a tangled web of conflicting testimonies that left the judge and observers trying to discern the truth while also navigating procedural rules and evidence requirements. The suspense was intensified by the knowledge that Blake Lively's attorneys were attempting to insert themselves into proceedings where they had no standing, which not only annoyed the judge, but also created dramatic tension in the courtroom because the presence of high-profile celebrities and their legal teams always adds a layer of public scrutiny and media attention that can influence how arguments are perceived, even when they should be irrelevant. And yet, Bender continued to push the limits, filing late motions and insisting on the relevance of evidence that clearly did not pertain to her clients, creating a sense of chaos and uncertainty as the judge struggled to maintain order and ensure that the proceedings stayed within the bounds of proper legal procedure. The intrigue deepened as evidence suggested that Scooter Braun had once been a client of Stephanie Jones and had personally distanced himself from her practices, which included alleged harassment campaigns on social media targeting Taylor Swift and other clients. This raised questions about motive and whether Stephanie Jones was targeting the wrong people by focusing her efforts on Melissa Nathan and her employees instead of the actual decision maker and financial backer who may have directed certain actions indirectly through his employees. This layer of complexity added suspense because it was unclear who could be held accountable legally and whether the courtroom drama would ever reach the root of the issue or simply become a battle of wills between lawyers with high-profile clients and personal grudges at stake. The courtroom tension was amplified when Kevin Fritz and other attorneys representing Wayfair pointed out the irrelevance of Blake Lively's legal team and reminded the judge that procedural rules do not allow parties to insert themselves into matters where they have no standing. Yet Kristen Bender continued to argue her points passionately but ineffectively, often circling back to motions and claims that did not align with the case at hand, creating a theatrical display that left spectators on the edge of their seats because anything could happen next, and the suspense of whether the judge would allow her interventions or shut her down completely kept everyone guessing. The drama escalated further as the judge questioned whether the evidence Kirsten Bender sought even existed and whether her late subpoena was justified, highlighting the tension between procedural fairness and strategic maneuvering in high-profile cases. And as each attorney presented their arguments, the web of conflicting testimonies between Casease, Melissa Nathan, and Stephanie Jones grew more complicated, leaving observers questioning credibility and potential motives and whether self-preservation, fear, or genuine legal obligation was driving each statement and action. The suspense was nearly tangible as the courtroom witnessed back-and-forth exchanges about who instructed whom, what communications had taken place, what social media accounts and websites had been created and for whose benefit, all while considering the implications of testimony that could potentially incriminate individuals indirectly and create ripple effects across other ongoing or future lawsuits in Hollywood and beyond. The narrative became even more tangled when it was revealed that Melissa Nathan had previously signed sworn declarations denying involvement in similar activities in other cases, such as the Rebel Wilson lawsuits, raising the possibility that Casease could be attempting to shift blame or protect herself from becoming a defendant, creating a dramatic psychological tension where the audience and courtroom alike had to weigh the credibility of each party against potential ulterior motives, and the stakes could not have been higher because reputations, careers, and financial interests hung in the balance, and any misstep or revelation could change the trajectory of the litigation dramatically and unexpectedly. The suspense continued to build because evidence suggested that the website and social media campaigns were allegedly created to target former clients and individuals perceived as rivals or threats to Stephanie Jones or her business interests, creating an undercurrent of personal vendetta that contrasted sharply with the formal legal arguments and added a sense of unpredictability to each hearing. The courtroom became a stage for a complex power struggle where attorneys pushed legal boundaries, attempted to influence outcomes, and high-profile individuals loomed in the background, with their influence and resources amplifying the stakes and creating a sense of drama reminiscent of a Hollywood thriller where every action has consequences and the resolution remains uncertain. The tension was heightened further by the competing claims about authorship, direction, and responsibility, with Casease claiming Melissa Nathan had guided her, while Melissa Nathan denied involvement, and Stephanie Jones seeking to pin blame and control the narrative in ways that could potentially fracture partnerships and influence public perception. And all of this was unfolding under the scrutiny of a judge who had to balance procedural fairness with the chaotic interjections of high-profile attorneys and their clients, while maintaining the integrity of the legal process. And the suspense kept escalating because every new motion and counter motion added layers to the story, creating a continuously evolving narrative that left spectators wondering who would emerge credible, who would be discredited, and what secrets might still be revealed that could turn the case in an entirely new direction. And the drama was only amplified by the financial and strategic interests of Scooter Braun as the backer of TAG, whose involvement was indirect yet critical because the focus of Stephanie Jones remained on Melissa Nathan and her employees, creating a complex chess game of influence, perception, and legal maneuvering, where the real target remained hidden behind layers of procedural disputes, conflicting testimonies, and high-stakes posturing. And every observer from courtroom staff to online followers was left on edge, waiting to see who would falter, who would prevail, and whether justice, credibility,